I feel very honored to be here, guys. Seeing you all here really brings a joy inside of me that I'm not sure that you guys know, or maybe if you do, that's a good thing. It's always good to see that God's people are here gathered today.
Amen.
But I'd like to tell you a story. One day, an atheist took the United States government to court. He argued that atheists do not have a holiday and that they should have one. After hearing this, the judge thought carefully, and then he read from Psalm 14, verse 1. The fool says in his heart, "There is no God. They are corrupt. They do abominable things. There is none who does good." The judge said, "You have been arguing here that atheists do not have a holiday, but the evidence here shows that you do." The atheist questioned, "What would that one be?" And the judge answered, "April Fool's Day." Most people today are celebrating April Fool's Day. However, today is also Palm Sunday. And I think it's fitting that today is April Fool's Day and Palm Sunday, because we can share the gospel with all those who do not believe and are what the Bible considers fools. The triumphal entry is one of the events that's mentioned in all four of the Gospels. Each one has a historical account. But the text I'm going to read to you today is Matthew 21, verses 1 through 11. It was here that Jesus would enter a city, be praised by people that would later crucify him. Now when they drew near to Jerusalem and came to Bethphage, to the Mount of Olives, when Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village in front of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone asks anything of you, you shall say, 'The Lord needs them,' and he will send them at once." This took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet, saying, "To the daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden." The disciples went and did as Jesus directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and put on them their cloaks, and he sat on them. Most of the crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from trees and spread them on the road. And the crowds that went before him and that followed him were shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" And when he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred up and saying, "Who is this?" And the crowd said, "This is the prophet Jesus of Nazareth of Galilee." There are a few things about Christ that we can learn in this passage. One of them is Jesus is king. In fact, Jesus was the rightful king of the Jews. In this text, we learn that he fulfilled prophecy of the king when he entered Jerusalem on a donkey and a colt. It says so right in the verse 4 and 5. This took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet, saying, "Say to the daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden." Now, Jesus was also the descendant of a king, actually the second king of Jerusalem, King David. In Matthew's genealogy, we see that Jesus was born of Abraham, of Judah, of David. And in Luke's genealogy, we see the same thing, only we see the biological line of Christ through Mary. So we have Jesus, who is the legal king by Joseph, and the biological king by Mary. In fact, Jesus was a king that was promised in the Old Testament. When Adam sinned in the garden with his wife, they ate of the tree of the knowledge of fruit of good and evil. And they had sinned against God. They had rebelled against Him. They had become criminals. But instead of putting them to death immediately, God instead promised something to Satan, who would deceive them. I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. You find that in Genesis 3:15. Jesus is the king of Judah, as promised to Judah through Israel, Jacob. And Genesis 49, verse 10. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. Some versions say until Shiloh comes to him, which means peace. In fact, Jesus was not just the king of Judah. He was the king descended from the house of David, as I mentioned before. And this was promised to David by God. In 2 Samuel 7, verses 12 through 16. When your days are fulfilled and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your offspring after you. You shall come, who shall come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He will build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. When he commits iniquity, I will discipline him with the rod of men, with the stripes of the sons of men. But my steadfast love will not depart from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away before you. And your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before me. Your throne will be established forever. Now Jesus did not sin. He did not commit iniquity. But he bore the iniquity of us all by taking the stripes of men. He was beaten. And in the Gospels it said he was scourged, probably by a cat of nine tails, which was pieces of glass and bone and nails tied to a whip that would tear off the flesh. And he was the king bringing salvation, as prophesied by Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. Righteous and having salvation is he, humble and mounted on a donkey, on the colt, the foal of a donkey. That was the prophet that prophesied about Jesus that was mentioned in Matthew. But he was not the king that they wanted. They wanted a king that could conquer Rome, that would free Israel from captivity and slavery to Rome. The punishment was so bad that Roman soldiers would force Jewish citizens to walk a whole mile carrying loads. And they instituted tax collectors among the people to take taxes from them. The tax collectors would often cheat them and steal from them. They wanted someone to do away with that. And they thought they found it in Jesus. They saw him feed 5,000 people with just 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread.